Hello, and welcome to Longwood GradCast Beyond the Degree. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Tanner Anderson, Assistant Dean of the College of Graduate and Professional Studies. This season, we're exploring one big question. How did you get here? Join us as we uncover the inspiring, winding, and sometimes unexpected paths of Longwood University's graduate alumni, students, and faculty. Whether you're dreaming of your next step, reflecting on your journey, or just curious about the stories behind remarkable success, this podcast is your inside look at the transformative power of education, determination, and the Longwood spirit. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Season 2 of our Longwood GradCast Beyond the Degree, where we ask one big question: how did you get here? And so today we have with us Maria Hamilton, a student success coordinator right here at Longwood University. We are so excited to hear about your journey. Thanks for being with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm just honored to be here and excited to be doing this.
Well, you are kind of a big deal, so I'm going to go ahead and just start with that. And you've done lots of big things. And so I'm really interested, as the podcast, leads us, to hear how you got here. So you went from completing your undergrad in West Virginia to your reading literacy and learning master's degree here at Longwood. And finally, now you're pursuing your doctoral degree. So tell me a little bit about how you got to this place.
Yeah. Okay. So I started in Morgantown at WVU, like you said, got my undergrad and master's degree. So they had just started a 4-in-1 program. And so, I was in the first graduating class of that program. And we were doing they had one of the big career fairs and recruitment things. And so talking to different schools up there, and Cumberland County was there, and they offered me a job teaching and a coaching position, a girls basketball assistant coaching position.
Nice.
And I have family in Midlothian, so we came down and checked out the school. And my husband now also was offered a position while we were there. So this was kind of like we'll come and stop for a moment and then move on 25 years later.
Central Virginia does that to people.
We're still here. Yeah. So I was there teaching. We got married, started a family. I stepped away from the classroom for a bit, but I stayed in education doing grant writing and writing for an online school before online learning was cool.
Yeah. Pre-COVID.
Yeah. I did that for a while. And then I actually transitioned out of education. My kids had started school here in Prince Edward, and I started baking. I don't think I talked about that before. But so I was fortunate enough to work with a lot of wonderful people in town, baked for a little while, and then got back into education as a instructional assistant at Prince Edward. And then I transitioned into a literacy position, which is where I'd always really wanted to be. So a position came available. I became an interventionist for a little while and realized I needed a little bit more knowledge about what was going on in the literacy world, which is where Longwood came in, and the RLL program. And that program was just wonderful. It was like the catalyst for everything that has come since then. And so I finished that program in the midst of COVID, so that's when they transitioned to kind of making that online, and transitioned into a literacy coaching position, and just fell in love with learning about literacy. And so here I am, still in school, working on my doctorate.
And I love that so much. And so you mentioned a little bit about literacy education, rather, is really what you wanted to do. So what sparked that interest initially?
I was a K-1 teacher, and so that's kind of the heart of where it all starts.
Yeah.
And you can just never know enough about it. And actually, at the time, UVA was offering some classes, so 25 years ago, that I had started and kind of tipped my toes in that water and knew, okay, this is what I want to do at some point.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, and I love too, you mentioned that RLL kind of, kept the train rolling, and you've continued to keep learning. So you've had a really interesting pathway, right? So starting in West Virginia and picking up here in Cumberland, coming to Prince Edward, being here at Longwood. And so I guess what I'm just wondering is, how did that experience really shape you into what you're doing now?
Gosh, I think it had everything to do with it.
Okay.
I kind of knew that I wanted to be in literacy. I really thought that you'd be just rolling me out of a first grade classroom at some point at the end of my career. And the more I learned about literacy and the more I learned about its impact on students and not only in the classroom, but after they leave the classroom, I really just kept wanting to know more.
So how did your experience as a teacher in Prince Edward County shape your decision to pursue graduate studies?
Oh, yeah. So I was an interventionist and I was working with students at the elementary school. And I really just realized I needed to know more. If I was going to be in this position and be able to do the job that the students needed me to do, I just didn't have the knowledge that I needed to have. And things had been changing in literacy and evolving. And fortunately, my time away from the classroom was a time that some of what we're seeing now to be not best practices, I was able to kind of avoid a little bit of that by taking some time off. And so then being here at Longwood, we were really in the thick of learning what best practices are and being able to build from that. And so it was kind of like we talk about it, but you can only put so much into a program. And so just that love for learning, I just needed to know more after I learned everything that they had time to share.
Well, and you mentioned too, so from being in the classroom and time away and coming back and getting your graduate degree, is there a particular moment in your RLL journey that that really changed the way that you think about education?
I don't know if it changed the way I thought about education, but I just know I needed to know more. It just came to that point where we can only learn so much in the time that we have. And as great as the program was, it's kind of like it was a jump start to what I needed to know. And just seeing how, because I was doing it during COVID. And so seeing how that impacted our students not being at school and not having that day-to-day interaction with them just kept reinforcing that idea that we just don't know enough about how to serve our students.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned that. So my kiddo was in kindergarten when COVID hit, and so what pivotal years, right?
Yeah, right.
Especially with regard to literacy. And so I so valued, his teachers and the reading specialists and all the coaches for being able to kind of assemble in a way that they hadn't before because learning looked very different. And so you mentioned, so that was for me and for my kiddo, our family and how we were dealing with it. But you were also going through a program during COVID. And so that's challenging. But I guess I'm interested if that was the biggest challenge. I'd love to hear more about it. But if there were other challenges that you faced while you were getting your graduate degree, and how did you navigate that?
Yeah. So we have 3 kids, and they were 9th grade, 8th grade, and 6th grade when I was doing this. And so that in and of itself, trying to fit in grad school between swim meets.
Yeah. For us, it's baseball, right?
Yeah. Like band concerts and volleyball games and transitioning, COVID shut everything down and kind of helped with that for me because I didn't have to figure out, okay, if I'm studying during these 3 events at the swim meet, then I can pay attention to these 2 events, trying to navigate all of that. But that was definitely the biggest challenge, while we were still fresh and in person, is just navigating the family and their needs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So going back to all the things that you learned in your grad program and also in your experience, because I think you've kind of highlighted, and I'm sure you'll talk about it more throughout this podcast, just being in the space and the experience of being in the trenches, particularly now with so many pieces of legislation coming down the pike with the Virginia Literacy Act and other things. And so is there something that you wish that you would have known when you first started this journey, when you first started teaching about literacy? Is there something you wish you would have known?
I think just how impactful it is.
Yeah.
When as a teacher, you're like, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to work with my kindergarten and my first year students, and I'm really going to, develop their literacy skills. But you don't see at that point how it impacts them later. You can read about it, you can hear about it, but especially being young, right? When you're first out of college, you're kind of like, okay, this is my classroom and this is what happens within the walls of my classroom. And okay, then I'm going to get them ready for the next grade. but really you're getting them ready for being successful for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
And so really just understanding how much as a teacher how much of that responsibility you have and how important it is that you keep learning to be able to do the best job you can for those students.
And I think you're so right because, you often think I taught the lesson, like I've done what I need to do, they're learning the course content, they move on to the next level, but every single level builds upon the previous. And by the time they graduate and they step out into a life of their own, you have made an exponential impact on their lives. And I think that's something that you can put it on the wall, right? I make an impact in the lives of children, but you really do. And particularly when it comes to literacy, because it's a skill that they continue to flourish, and grow throughout the rest of their life. So first, I just want to pause and say thank you. I think you're a by gosh saint. And I have said to many, many people that there's nothing quite like a global pandemic to illuminate the fact that your girl, Sarah Tanner Anderson, was never called to be an elementary educator. Give me middle school, give me the hormones, give me high school. But elementary, you all are saints. And so thank you for all the work that you've done. But so you've done a lot, though, since being in the classroom and also since the RLL program. So how did the RLL program in particular prepare you for roles that you've stepped into since then?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't be in any of them if I hadn't taken that leap. It's just it's opened doors that I didn't even know were out there.
Yeah.
And so I'm really grateful for that. The time that I spent with Tammy and Wendy and Ange and working through that program with them. And then Ange and I just kind of connected on a colleague level. And so that's where we've continued to grow and write and present and kind of just see how impactful that side of things can be, which is exciting and terrifying all at the same time. When people are looking to you, right, for that kind of okay, what do you have to say?
No, absolutely. But you have a lot to say. And I love that you're out there sharing it and writing about it and presenting about it. But you've also transitioned. Your career has really evolved in a different way over the past couple of years. And so you said you spent a number of years out in the classroom, doing that good work. Again, thank you for your saintly duties. But then you transition into, a more interventionist role and a literacy coach. So how did each of those steps kind of come about from the classroom and moving into those roles?
It kind of was, as I was learning more, as I just kept on growing myself, these doors kind of opened.
Yeah.
And so I just was really aware of when these opportunities were coming about and took advantage of them when they could. And like I said, if I hadn't have continued on through the RLL program, then I probably wouldn't be here right now. Those doors wouldn't have opened for me. So
absolutely. And that's something that I love to share with people too. People will often ask or they'll say, it's not the right time for me to go to grad school. It is. It absolutely is. And what happens is you have these skills and credentials in your back pocket. And so when those doors open that you don't even necessarily know exist, you're ready for it.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that, because I think so often people, they're cautious about taking that next step, but then all these incredible opportunities await you and you're ready for them. So I love that. So you said you also spent some time here in Prince Edward, and you were acting then as a practicum site coordinator for the RLL program, right? So not only were you a student, but you just keep giving back and doing all these incredible things. So tell me about that experience.
Yeah. So I got to, after I finished the program, I got to stay on with the RLL department and coordinate the tutoring between the county and the school, because it kind of transitioned from when I was there doing it. We were in person with students. We were choosing our own students, and it just looked a little bit different. And so then COVID and things transitioned, and they really wanted to support Prince Edward County. And so that's where this partnership came in between the RLL department and the elementary school. We were fortunate enough to be able to have our students benefit from that partnership many years.
No, I think that's wonderful. So both our students, our Longwood students, but also the Prince Edward students and the entire community, which I think that's fantastic. Just developing those relationships and being able to share the expertise that you're learning. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and the students loved it too. I mean, if you their little faces, because they're on the screen, right? And so they're talking to you and they have this hour once or twice a week, however many times a week we did it with
Yeah.
these two wonderful people. And the students just get so invested in that. Like, you're their person and they want to see you and they want to hug you through the computer and they
And do well for you.
Yeah,
they show up and shine. I love it so much.
I mean, it was great.
I love that. All right. So, you're just, I don't know. I have to say, Maria, when I meet people like you who, step into these different roles, and in every role where you find yourself, you shine, right? You develop great relationships with people. You're such a positive energy and you do really incredible things. So I'm sure that it's hard to pinpoint a particular time or space that you have made an impact. But I'm wondering if there are any impactful memories that you've made over the course of the different roles you found yourself in that you might be willing to share with our listeners.
Sure. Yeah. I think the biggest one for me, which just kind of confirms that, my learning path is just seeing that moment when a student realizes those weird shapes actually mean something. And I
Yes.
can put them together with those other weird shapes that I now know their names of, and I can read all by myself. And I don't need you anymore to do that for me. I mean, it's just so cool to see their eyes light up and, or go from the fact that they realized that they couldn't do that, because that's something too, right? Like, they're starting to realize, oh, I can't do that, to I just did it. Like, I just did all of the hard things to get here.
I do think it's pretty magical. And I say all the time, a recovering, principal. I was a principal, but before that, I was an English teacher. And of course, in middle and high school, when they get to you, they know, most students know how to read, right? So then we're talking about figurative language and theme and different things like that. But to see the magic of a child, like you said, these symbols, these things that mean nothing, come together and really they start reading and they light up and they're so excited and they want to read everything, every sign, every book, every thing on the cereal box, like everything.
Yeah.
And the magic of that, I think sometimes, unless you like pause to really appreciate it, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And we just do this thing and you do it. Like, you help them get there. I just think that's so magical. So thank you. All right. So I'm wondering too, because you've gone from impacting the lives of young people to impacting, the lives of grown people in a different way. So tell me about your more recent career steps. So
Sure.
we've talked about your classroom, your interventionist, your coaching, all that good stuff. But now you have transitioned into a role here at Longwood as a student success coordinator. So I guess, one, what is that? Because that sounds like incredible wizardry and I love it. But also, did you ever see yourself coming into a role like this?
Yeah. Well, so no.
No, but
Nope, I actually didn't until August, when I saw the position.
Nice.
August of last year.
Did you say opportunity was there and you were ready for it? Because that's what I heard.
Yeah. I think that's what it was. It was just like, let's do this. But yeah, so the role is new. It's grant funded. And so we kind of came into it after school had already started. So I think what I did last year is a bit of what I'm going to be doing moving forward, but it's also a bit different. But big picture, it's just helping students be successful. So if they're stumbling in class or with time management or using some of the resources here on campus, just really figuring out what is behind those struggles and helping empower them to make choices that bring them out of that.
I think that sounds amazing. And it's such a wonderful support for our students. So I guess I'm just wondering, what does a typical day in the life of Maria look like?
Oh, well, lots of students. Yeah. So my office is in the Rotunda. My position is to work with students in the College of Arts and Sciences. And so that's what I spend the majority of my day doing, is just meeting with students and talking through what brought them to my office and what can keep them out of my office.
Right? I love to see you. Bye.
Yeah. Like, I've got hot chocolate, but let's see. Yeah. And so just kind of navigating that with them and helping them learn more about being learners as adult learners, because it looks different.
It does. And so I'm really interested because you mentioned just supporting them and helping them kind of identify where they can grow and how you can help them get there. So what does your background in literacy, like, how does that help? How does that help them, your students, and also help you in that role to help your students?
Yeah. So I didn't anticipate it playing as large of a role as it has, because a lot of it, I've heard time and time again from students, like, I was a reader. I could do this in high school. I don't know what's happening now. And really, if you look at every part of college, literacy is a part of that.
Sure
It doesn't
is.
matter, if you're doing physics or if you're reading a great novel.
Yeah.
And so just that transition from being kind of a passive reader learner to really being that active learner and understanding what all that entails. I think it's been a big part of walking through that with students because they just don't realize you don't know what you don't know. Right.
Exactly. And it's a different kind of learning. Collegiate learning is different than what they've done in high school. And so I think having someone there to shepherd them through that process it's helpful. So I wonder, do you have any success stories that you'd like to share? Any memorable moments with students?
When I was coaching, I used to kind of joke and say, oh, but it's the same thing. In the morning, I'm working with little kids. In the afternoon, I'm working with high school kids. And they all get excited when they learn and grow. And college kids are the same way. It's so sweet. I love being in the rotunda because they can just pop in and be like, hey, look at this. Here's this test that I did really well on, or here's this, project that went really well.
Please tell me you have a figurative refrigerator and just hang it all up on the refrigerator. I love it.
Here we go, guys. Yeah. But so I've had just several experiences like that where just students were so appreciative of the work that we did together. And, just that same excitement, like, here, let me have a magnet so I can put it
I really think like you need a bulletin board that looks like a refrigerator. Like we need to brainstorm on that.
Yeah.
And take obviously redact names, but still like stickers, the whole nine. I love it.
Oh, I love that.
I love it.
Yep.
We'll talk later. Okay. So you also mentioned a bit earlier that you've been writing, you've been presenting at conferences, like you've been doing all these incredible things in addition to just supporting students. And so what sparks you to do that? Obviously, it sounds like you have a full schedule. You're doing all the things, but you still find time to do that. So what sparks that in you?
Yeah, I realized early on when I was doing intervention that once you graduate, you've graduated, right? You go into your classroom, you close the door, and that is all. And it's a much steeper climb to learn something new or different or shift your practices in any way once you've really become established. And so just trying to help that transition be a little bit easier, try to spark that joy of learning that I have in other people and just, kind of impart how important it is to be a continuous learner. And when we can talk to people that haven't established themselves yet, maybe they're still a student, maybe they're still working on getting a job, really being impactful and kind of shaping the decisions that they make in literacy.
Yeah. And I think you bring a great point about, well, first inspiring people, because I think at some point, not that you check a box, but you graduate, you walk across the stage, you start your career, you're doing your thing. And not that you forget to give back, but you get busy, right? And you're constantly looking for ways to grow yourself in your own profession. But I love the idea of finding growth for yourself by also helping grow others. And I think your practitioner lens is really valuable. Sometimes I think we sit down, information that we're just overloaded talking about academic reading, right? And you're just like, okay, you're trying to get the nuggets and glean something from it. But those practitioner lenses are so incredibly important, particularly for those folks just starting out, to be like, okay, I'm in this space. Like, how do I make it happen? How do I make this magic happen? And I think you being able to give back in that way it's so important. One, but also I think it's so inspiring because it shows others the power of doing that helps grow you as a professional, but also grow others. So are there any highlights or any high points from any presentations or articles perhaps that you'd like to share with us today?
I think they all just kind of build on each other. It really has been kind of a wild ride to see how just one door opens up as the next one closes. And, we've been, Ange and I have been doing some work in morphology lately. And that was it was so fun to see how many people were interested in that. So we were in Ohio at the International Dyslexia Association conference.
Yeah.
And it was a standing room only presentation.
Well, because y'all are a big deal.
I mean, like that just imparts on me how important me being a learner is, because if that many people want to hear, if we've like found that kind of little nugget that many people want to hear what we have to say, we have to be at the top of where we need to be. with that. But yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to see how many people, and just knowing that. I think that's what brought me out of the classroom. You can impact students' lives, and you get 18 to 20 of them a year, and then that's a large number, over a career. But when you start impacting teachers, then that impacts students in numbers that you don't even realize. And so just helping be a part of that for students all over is kind of what helps me. It's just what keeps me learning more.
It's fun. Like it jazzes you up, right?
Yeah.
I can see how excited you are about it. And I am excited now too. I'm like, tell me more about morphology. I don't know, like that. But I think that's it's a great point, because you can make such a huge impact, right? And once, standing room only, it's kind of a big deal, but like you're in that space and you know that people are yearning for that information and being able to provide that. It's just incredible.
It's fun. Yeah. So that's kind of transitioned to here now as well. So when I got here, John Miller immediately was like, hey, so literacy, how can we talk about literacy and English, and where those things kind of collide. And so I've been very fortunate to be working with the English Modern Language Department, and just, visiting conversations about literacy and what they're seeing in the classroom, and how students have gotten to where they are, and what we can do in higher education to help support those students through this transition.
I think that's incredible. And, when you think of it, English and modern languages has a special place in my heart, dear listeners. So I was an English major when I went to Longwood. My master's was in English as well. And so obviously I know they're doing incredible work over there.
Yeah.
But I think it's also really interesting too. English all those classes, every single student who comes to Longwood as an undergraduate, they'll end up taking an English class of some sort, right? And so being able to have those collaborative moments where you can talk literacy, you can talk about supporting students, particularly those who, may be struggling in that transition, from high school coming into college, and supporting them in that way. I think it's great that you've formed some solid relationships with English and modern languages for that reason alone, other than that they're just delightful people. So
they are.
Yeah, they really are. Okay. And so you have also, though, so you mentioned, working with them and collaborating with lots of folks, but you've also taken on some leadership roles, and you've done a lot of volunteer work. And so I happen to know that you served on the Longwood Graduate Alumni Collaborative. So can you tell me a little bit about that experience, and maybe what you took away from it that contributed to your journey?
Yeah, sure. So that was a great group of people. How do we put all those letters together? I don't
LGAC. I don't know. I really wanted to have some sort of a guac reference so that we could just have chips and guac, and it never really came to fruition. So it's okay. So the Longwood Graduate Alumni Collaborative.
Yes, that was it. So it was this great group of people that were pulled together from all different places, and just talking through, I think, what being an alumni of Longwood means, how we can impact other people and spaces, and encourage other people to come along and join us.
Absolutely. And I think the unique thing too with graduate alumni, although I think every Longwood alum has something special, I say all the time, like you can go nowhere. It's definitely not in the Commonwealth, mostly across the nation and even internationally, and not run into someone from Longwood whose mom went to Longwood or uncle. Like, we just have a big Longwood family. But our graduate alumni is kind of unique in that we come together as working professionals, kind of already established, sometimes in our families and our careers, and looking for something a little different. So being able to establish those relationships, I think, are really instrumental in keeping the work going once they leave. And so I, for one, am very appreciative for your service to the Longwood Graduate Alumni Collaborative, because I do think it's important for graduate alumni in particular to keep in touch, because we have a kind of a special bond that's a little unique from our undergraduate counterparts.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess initiatives like that do help you stay connected to Longwood. I mean, other than the fact that you also work here and are very connected to Longwood on the daily. But how else have you stayed connected with folks, maybe from that alumni or student level, in a way that has continued to positively impact your growth?
Just kind of keeping in contact with people that are doing the same work, because and again, another place to grow in your profession is learning from others. And so how have you taken what you learned at Longwood and used it where you are? And what can we glean from each other to make those experiences just a little bit better?
Absolutely. And in the spirit of gleaning from one another, you also, just to put another feather in your cap, gave a Blackwell talk, which those are really incredible. And for our listeners who might not know what a Blackwell talk is, it's really an opportunity for faculty and staff to learn from one another for research that they are currently conducting, get feedback. It's a conversation, but also it's a really incredible time to come together and learn from one another. And so first of all, what was your Blackwell talk all about? And then what key message did you really hope that attendees gleaned when they walked away?
Yeah. So it all started with that initial conversation at the beginning of the semester. And then I kind of shifted the work that I'm doing right now at UVA to look at that adult college level learning and just realizing through conversations with students, through conversations with other faculty, that this is a space where people don't know how literacy has evolved. They don't know the changes that have come over the last 5 to 10 years that we've known about forever, but they haven't made it to this space yet. And so I really wanted to look at that and what students are bringing here, to this academic setting, what professors need to support that part of learning that they might not have experienced in the past, or maybe they've seen kind of shifting over the years. My talk was starting kind of at the beginning and saying, hey, this is the evolution of what's been happening in literacy. And this is why you're seeing what you're seeing in your classroom. And then, it's not your students' fault. It's not the teacher's fault. It's not the professor's fault. This is just the face of what literacy has been over the last several decades. And this is what we're doing to correct that. And so here are some things that you can do. Here are some questions that, we can all talk about together. But I was just kind of hoping to spark that conversation and just see what are the needs? What conversations can we have about literacy that's going to impact everyone here at Longwood in a positive way?
And I think it's a timely moment to have those conversations. And we, mentioned it a little earlier about the Virginia Literacy Act, how that conversation has really kicked up, particularly in pre-K-12 education. So can you describe to me a little bit about your work with the Virginia Literacy Act? So I know your Blackwell talk kind of opened a space for Longwood faculty and staff to talk about it, but what does your work really look like with regard to that?
So I was part of the advisory board for the Literacy Act. So they had already passed the act. They put a group of people across the state together to just talk through the decisions that were being made and how that was going to impact really in the classroom. So, instead of theory, like what is that going to look like? And it was a great opportunity to kind of get a deeper look at where the legislation was coming from and then how is that going to translate in a classroom and in a school, and helping especially Prince Edward be able to make that transition into the expectations of the legislation.
And I'm so glad that there was a practitioner's voice, particularly a Longwood prepared practitioner's voice, serving in that role on that advisory board, because I think you have a lot to share. And I feel wholly confident that having someone like you and your colleagues being able to be representative of the good work that our students are getting what they need to be productive and successful, particularly in pre-K-12. And you mentioned Prince Edward, but really across the state of Virginia, because then in our hopes, they do transition to higher ed, or out into the community as contributing members of our greater society. So I'm very thankful to have had you serve in that way. So I'm wondering too, if you think about all the incredible things that you have done across the span of your career to date. I say to date because I believe that there's still lots of great things to come from you, Maria. But let's go back to the fact that you're working on your doctorate, okay? Like on top of all these amazing things that you're doing, let's switch gears and go back to that for just a second. So first of all, why? What motivated you, right, to pursue a doctoral degree? And then why did you choose the University of Virginia other than the fact that Longwood didn't have a doctoral degree? I'm just kidding. No, but why did you choose UVA?
Yeah, well, so Longwood doesn't have one.
I know. I'm working on it.
There's that.
Just kidding.
TikTok.
Just kidding.
No, like I said, I mean, just being in the RLL program really opened my eyes to the fact, one, I just love learning.
Yeah.
That's kind of a hobby, I
Yeah,
guess. I don't
that's
know.
a great hobby to have.
And I just kept wanting to know more. And UVA has always been a place where literacy, the state looks to UVA for literacy, and we have for a long time. And so even starting out 25 years ago, I was like, oh, if I do something in literacy, I want to get it. I want to do that through UVA. And so I just decided, okay, now or never. If I'm gonna, it wasn't ever really something I thought I was going to do. Like I said, you were just going to wheel me out of that first grade classroom. I was going to be fine. And then I just, you're talking about it. People that have done it are like, yeah, you should do that. You should do that. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. It's like,
so
that's a long journey.
It is a long journey. And yet you are crushing it. But so how are you balancing all of it? So working here at Longwood and getting your doctorate and still writing and presenting and all the things that you do, how do you balance it all?
I don't know.
That is the most honest answer to that question I have ever gotten.
I don't know. I mean, I have a calendar. Time management. It was good timing.
Okay.
As well. Yeah. So I have 2 kids that are in college. So I started UVA last summer. So yeah, our oldest 2 had graduated. So it just a timing thing, I think, is helping all of that work out, less swim meets and band competitions and volleyball games and all of that. And so kind of now I'm just filling that space with learning.
As you do when you have a hobby of learning. So do you think that you've learned anything surprising so far in your program?
Yeah. So I've learned a lot about adult learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so not when you say it out loud, it's like, oh, that's not really surprising because, as adults, we learn and we like to hold on to what we learn and we have that autonomy to make these decisions. But when you're thinking about having an influence over adults as learners, that's a whole different ballgame. And so there's quite a bit that I've learned in that field. I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
But also, what a tremendous time to learn it when you are impacting the way that you are as the student success. You're coaching these adult learners in a different way. So you're able to kind of pick up some pieces and tips and tricks from your doctorate and also employ it in your day job.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And the same thing with the literacy, like just kind of, it's all come together in a way that I just couldn't have planned.
Yeah, no, that's the best way though. You're like, I didn't even plan this and look at me, just look at me go. So what do you see as far as, your doctoral research, it's really filling your cup and also helping you fill others. Do you see your doctoral research influencing literacy education to come?
I mean, it could.
Spoiler alert. It shall.
So because out of that, I'm going to be presenting at the Summer Literacy Institute at Longwood. Yeah, super excited about that. So I've spent a lot of time in that, elementary space.
Sure.
So pre-K 4, 5-ish right there. And so what I'm doing now is the whole other end of that. And through that seeing, okay, so how can I back up some of this stuff that we're doing here in this space, talking about academic texts and college students and university students literacy? How can I back that up into secondary teaching and learning? And what can that look like to help bridge kind of this gap between what's happening in the expectations there and what the students are bringing to the university and college setting?
Because it's all connected.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. I feel like so often you're traditionally brought up to teach this group of students, right? And we are not dragging you out of your first grade classroom. Like you are impacting students of all ages and all ranges and from all places. And I think that's kind of the beauty of a career path that meanders a bit, and when you find yourself in unexpected places and just take a minute to pause and look back and be like, dang, like I've done some things, right? I've helped some people. And especially when you're convinced that this is where you're going to stay your whole career, but you've done some really incredible things. So I guess like what's next for Maria? Like where are you going to be in 5 years?
Oh, that's a big question.
It is a big question.
Honestly, I thought if I ever came down this path of getting a doctorate, that it was so I could teach at the college level. Like I want to impact teachers. That's basically the highest level that we can have an impact on the students, in the classroom. And so that's there. Like I would love to do that. So teaching at the college level, but also through this journey, I'm like, I don't know. Let's just see where this goes and kind of go from there. Cause there's a lot of people doing a lot of good work and I just keep getting,
and you're one of them.
I'm fortunate enough to work with so many of them. And so, I'm just kind of open to, okay, like I'd love to teach and then, keep writing, keep presenting, just keep seeing where this goes.
So you mentioned that you want to teach at the college level so that you can teach teachers and reading specialists that, to have a bigger impact on the students in the classroom. So if you were to give one piece of advice to educators, those who are yearning to make a bigger impact, what would it be?
Don't stop learning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Like we don't just get comfortable with where you are, because there's something else that you can always learn. And okay, so I wrote down this quote from Winnie the Pooh.
Oh my gosh, please share.
Okay. It says, "What's wrong with knowing what you know now and not knowing what you don't know until later?" Thank you, Winnie the Pooh.
Get it, Winnie. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Right?
Thank you for sharing that. And I think you're so right. So often, you get complacent and you're like, oh, good. I'm doing good stuff. But there's always so much joy in learning something new or different. And just like you mentioned, particularly with literacy, it's shifted and changed, it's ebbed and it's flowed, and knowing what's best practice and how to help support our students now, I think is different than it looked like, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And it may look different 20 years from now, right? So just staying on top of your game and learning more and doing things. And I think you mentioned too earlier, like you don't know what you don't know. And so when you sit down to learn something new and different, sometimes it's just the joy of learning something new, learning something different, and continuing to challenge yourself. So that is great advice, both from you and from Winnie the Pooh. All right. So last question for you, because we've talked a lot about your journey, but I wonder if you could share, looking back, how has the Longwood community really shaped your journey? And what does being a Longwood alumna mean to you?
It has been a great space to be a learner. Along the way, just the support from everyone that I've received, in the RL, all the professors, Randy. Let me try that again.
You got it.
Thanks. Tammy, Wendy, and Ange in that space. And then just coming on at Longwood and being part of this community, just to see how everyone values the students that are here and really the importance that they place on them as coming into their own space and becoming learners. And that's something that I've tried to share with the students that come in, through that student success lens. Is everybody here wants you to be successful, and everybody here really is in your corner cheering for you. And that's just something that I've felt since I started taking classes here.
And I think it's something I've said time and again on this podcast, and really anyone who will listen to me just wax on about Longwood, because I do it all the time. But Longwood really is a family. And I know people are like, oh, that's so hokey. But it's like, no, really, you learn so much about yourself through the care and support and compassion of everyone in the Longwood family. They support you. You have literally a title that does that. Like that's so incredible. And our students find such peace in that, in knowing that they're supported, whether they're an undergraduate student just starting out. I was a first-gen undergrad student starting out, just wandering around campus, like aimlessly, not knowing what to do. And people, scooped me up and shepherded me along the way, all the way to being a graduate student who honestly, you think you got everything figured out, right? You're a grown person, you're established in your field, but you come back to school. It might have been a minute since you've done school, and you still have that same level of support, whether you're 17, 18-year-old or a 45, 50-year-old coming back to keep learning. And I think you're right. That's a real unique, I think, benefit of being a Longwood alum, is that not only are you supported while you're here, but you're continuously supported even once you've graduated.
Absolutely.
We maintain that sense of family. And I'm so very thankful to have you here supporting our students in the role that you're in, but also supporting our students in pre-K-12 through the work that you're doing with the teachers, conference presentations, articles, staying connected, still serving, still volunteering, and always with a smile. I don't think I have ever seen you not with a smile. And so just thank you for all the work that you do and all the work that you continue to do. So 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, I can't wait to keep hearing more about your journey and all the incredible people you've impacted along the way.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Maria. And to everyone else, we will catch you next time on Longwood GradCast Beyond the Degree.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Longwood GradCast Beyond the Degree. We hope today's story has left you inspired to reflect on your own path and the steps that brought you here. Remember, every journey starts with a single step, and we are here to support yours. Explore our graduate programs and professional endorsements at longwood.edu/grad programs. And stay tuned for more stories that remind us leadership is in our blood. Is it in yours?